Turkey has issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and 36 senior officials, accusing them of genocide and crimes against humanity in Gaza. The Istanbul prosecutor's office named Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz, National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Army Chief Eyal Zamir among those wanted. The statement says Israel has perpetrated systematic genocide in the Strip, even targeting the Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital built by Ankara and bombed in March. Israel hit back. Foreign Minister Gideon Saar called the move a PR stunt by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, accusing him of using quotes to silence opponents. This is the latest flashpoint in a years-long war of words between Erdogan and Netanyahu, a feud as personal as it is political. In the past years, Erdogan has called Netanyahu a terrorist, a tyrant, even no different from Hitler, while Netanyahu has fired back, branding the Turkish leader a dictator who jails journalists and crushes dissent. Hamas praised Turkey's move, calling it a confirmation of the noble stance of the Turkish people and leadership. No other Arab nation has gone this far. There was an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court last year, but only 5 of the 22 Arab League members have actually ratified the ICC's statute. These are Jordan, Djibouti, Comoros Islands, Tunisia, and the state of Palestine. A fragile ceasefire still holds in Gaza under Donald Trump's peace plan, but this new legal blast from Ankara could rip open old fault lines and turn Turkey into the first country to formally brand Israel's war as genocide. Netanyahu and Erdogan, two men who have called each other every name in the book, now find themselves locked in a clash that's moved beyond diplomacy into the courts of global justice. Mr. Omer Ozki Zilchik is a non-residential fellow at the Atlantic Council and a strategic and defense analyst. Is now joining us live from Turkey. Mr. Omer, good to have you with us, and thank you very much for making time for us. Turkey is the first Arab nation to issue an arrest warrant against Netanyahu. Do you think other Arab nations will follow suit?
Yeah, I mean, to correct your small mistake, Turkey is Turkish, so it's not Arab, but we are in the region of the Middle East, where the predominant nations are the Arab, the Turks and the Persians. That being said, the Turkish decision by the Turkish court is much different than the situation the Arab states are facing, because in Turkey, despite its flaws and its mistakes and its limitations, Turkey is basically the only democracy in the Middle East, and Turkey has a functioning judicial system that is relatively independent from decision makers. Yes, there are some issues with the judicial system in Turkey, but it's much different than the Arab states. The Arab states themselves are in a much different situation. So internally, in terms of the political system, as well in terms of the approach towards the Gaza conflict and the approach towards Israel, we should not expect similar moves from most of the Arab states. There are some others that may take some similar steps, but that doesn't appear to be likely. So Turkey has always been on the forefront, because Turkey was the main nation that cut all of its trade with Israel, that embargoed Israel, and that stopped any relations with Israel. And Turkey is on the forefront in pushing against the Israeli aggressions in Gaza and the Israeli war crimes in Gaza. So therefore, Turkey, while being an example for the region, while this move would push other nations to also follow, I do not expect the Arab states in the region to take a similar approach as Turkey, because the internal political system and the international relation approach is a bit different than Turkey's.
Mr. Omer, for the benefit of our viewers and for the benefit of myself, I just want to understand something. What is the likely impact of this move by Turkey on the ongoing ceasefire plan? What happens next from the animosity between Israel and Turkey?
I mean, we have to underline here one thing. This step by Turkey is a reaffirmation that having a ceasefire in Gaza does not neglect the crimes committed by Israel in Gaza. So Turkey is re-emphasizing that despite that ceasefire, that there is a need to uphold international and humanitarian law. There's a need for accountability. So we should not get into the misguise and misunderstanding that Netanyahu and the Israeli government accepting a ceasefire and implementing it in reality will eradicate all the crimes that they have committed previously. No, Turkey wants to make sure that the ceasefire is a different issue and holding people for the crimes accountable is a different issue. And this list, as big as it is, will definitely limit any potential in the future normalization between Turkey and Israel as long as the current Israeli government is in power. So Turkey has also in the past rehabilitated and normalized its relations with Israel when Netanyahu was not in office. So Turkey makes a clear distinction, and Turkey sees that in Israel there are voices and political parties who have a different approach when it comes to Gaza and humanitarian law and war crimes than the current far-right government in power. And Turkey makes this distinction and wants to work with Israelis who are more reasonable and with a potential future Israeli government that is reasonable. But the current government who committed war crimes, Turkey, by taking these steps, basically blocks any future potential normalization between Turkey and Israel.
All right, Mr. Omer, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time and for talking to us today.
Thanks for having me.